guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be a recap of the second quarter of the year, and I also wanted to share my goals for the next quarter, which is quarter 3 already. It's already halfway through the year. I feel like time is passing by so quickly, which I say every single month, but it's true. My languages definitely haven't been progressing as quickly as the time, but that's a different problem. I'd love to know how your quarter 2 went, if it was good for you, if it was bad, what you got up to, what languages you were working on, so leave that all in the comments down below, and feel free to also share your goals for quarter 3 if you'd like to. Overall, quarter 2 went fairly well for me. I managed to achieve most of my goals, though they were a lot more vague this time. This was intentional because so much can change over a quarter, and I didn't want to tie myself down to specific goals for such a long time, like I did a bit in quarter 1. I was fairly busy, finishing up the year at uni and having my final exams at the end of May, and this did make me not focus on my languages for quite a while, and I thought I'd catch up in May, but I actually ended up being quite busy with a move, so overall I wasn't quite as productive as I think I could have been, but I still managed to get some language learning done, which is better than nothing, and all I can do now is to try and do better in the next quarter. My target languages for quarter 2 were French and Japanese. I had already decided to not make any goals for BSL, British Sign Language, for quarter 2 because I didn't really feel any sort of passion for it like I did for the other 2 languages, and I wasn't very good at balancing 3 languages. I'm already struggling with 2, so. I did take some BSL classes in April. After that, I basically stopped practicing it. I can still remember quite a bit, but obviously not very much. We're going to start off with my French goals. A lot of them were very input based. I wanted to start off with the easy stuff. Speaking and writing are my weakest points and I don't really like them. So I decided to hold off for the second quarter and focus on them closer to the exam. So my first goal was to finish the book Insect, and I finally managed to in April, and it was the highlight of that month. I was reading that book for way too long. I think I started it in January, and it was so long and boring, to be frank, that I kept on reading it all the way until April. I mean, I wasn't reading it continuously. I'd just pick it up, read a couple of chapters, get bored, put it down, and then I would feel too guilty to move on to a different book because I like to finish things that I start. But I couldn't finish it, so I was just stuck with that book for so long, and I finally finished it in April. So I was able to move on to the next book that I wanted to read, which is called Brûlé Vive, and I had another goal to finish that, and I did, and I managed to finish it in just about a week. It also helped that was during the 40-hour 7-day language challenge, which also took place in this quarter, I forgot to mention, but I had a lot more time to read and I was reading a lot more, and the book itself is a lot shorter, so I managed to get through it quite quickly, which allowed me to start another book during May, which is called Numéro 2, which follows the story of a fictional boy who was shortlisted to become the actor for Harry Potter. It came down to him and Daniel Radcliffe, and he was not chosen, and the book basically follows his life up until a point, and then his life after that point, and his life definitely took a downward turn after not being chosen. And there's a lot of stuff that goes on, obviously, aside from that. But it's a really interesting story, and initially when I started it in May, I was in a bit of a burnt out mood because of how much I studied during the challenge. So I didn't actually get very far through it in May. But during June, I managed to just completely finish it because, again, I was still in holidays, and I realised that it was actually a really interesting book. It's a lot darker than I expected. It follows a lot of his mental health issues, and it was also quite simple to read. I didn't have to look up a lot of words. I don't think I looked up any at all. I was also taking the same approach that I did for the previous book of not noting down every single word I come across that I didn't know. Though this time it was a lot easier to do that because there were practically none. I would read quite a lot before coming across a word that I didn't know. And a lot of the times when I looked it up, it was a very unimportant word or a very strange word. Basically something I wouldn't need to know, which is very cool because it shows that my reading skills are improving from the first book that I read. Overall, my reading has gone well this quarter, and I'm hoping to keep that pace up for the next quarter. I had another goal to read the news, and I did read the news a lot more than I did in the first quarter, but I have sort of dropped off and I haven't been reading the news as much as I wanted to, because I have wanted to read it every single day, just sort of let French be the language that I consume the news in. But then I realised that I don't actually like reading the news that much at all. I only really enjoy it when something interesting is happening in the world, and not a lot that interests me has been happening. So I haven't really felt the urge to read the news very much. I read it quite a bit during the language challenge, but afterwards and before that, I wasn't reading very much. I do want to continue though, because the news is a good source of advanced vocabulary, and I do need to brush up a lot on that. So in the next quarter, I'm definitely going to be trying to read a lot more news. My next goal was similar. I wanted to watch documentaries, and this I sort of managed to do. I've watched a lot during the language challenge again, but outside of it, I did manage to get a couple in. The problem is just how long they are and how much I actually care about the issue that they're talking about, because it's a bit hard for me to force myself to watch things that I don't want to watch, especially because I don't have any real reason to do so. So I only end up watching documentaries that are interesting to me, which just means that they have vocabulary that I already know and I don't end up really learning anything from them. So again, I'm going to have to try and force myself to go out of my comfort zone and like try and watch more documentaries and stuff and a wider variety of things. My next goal was to write longer pieces of writing. I don't think I managed to do this at all. I have been writing summaries of some of the documentaries that I've been watching, but apart from that, I haven't actually written a lot. And of course, aside from my journal entries, which I've still been doing, which is one of my goals, was to journal daily, and I managed to do that, but that was just sort of part of my routine already. But apart from that, I haven't been writing at all, because writing isn't something that I enjoy in any language. Even in English now, I don't write at all, which is something I really need to work on for in quarter 3 and quarter 4, because there is like a big writing section in the DELF exam. Yeah, I'm having a really hard time trying to motivate myself to do things that I don't have to do. So if anyone has any tips on how to work on that, I'd really appreciate it. I did start using one of the textbooks that I got that was about how to write for the DELF B2, and it's been really helpful, because before I was just trying to just write things out of nowhere without knowing how to structure my writing. And even though I didn't end up actually writing anything, I did follow some of the exercises from that textbook, and I think they really helped me start to understand how I should be structuring my work, which is all things that I don't know, because I haven't been in a French classroom in a long time, and since then I've just been sort of watching videos and reading stuff on social media, so I haven't really had any sort of structured learning place where I'd learn that sort of stuff. So it's been great to sort of start to understand what it is I need to do, and I need to continue to work on that as the time goes by. My next goal was to do 15 dictations, and this was very easy. I did 15, and I even did a couple more, I think. I didn't quite keep track after 15. They're quite fun to do. I use the site TV5 Monde. I'll link to it in the description. The thing I love about it is that the dictations are structured. They're split into separate sentences, and you can do them faster and slower. You can change your level according to your CFR level. They're really well done, and it makes it a lot easier to do. Like, I don't think I would be doing any dictations at all, or any sort of transcription in French if it wasn't for that site, because having to actually go through the content, find something that is clear but also has a script, and then using the script and writing down things yourself and comparing them, it's all just a lot of work. And on this site, it does the corrections for you, and you can see exactly which words you messed up quickly, and they'll even give you a grade on it so you can compare, and you can redo it so you can improve your score. So it's very, very convenient, and I will definitely be doing more of them in quarter 3. I was doing the dictations at a B2 level, but I think that I'm going to finish the B2 ones and then move on to C1 dictations. And my last goal was to finish all the preparation sections in the DELF 100 Réussite textbook. I did manage to do that. I actually didn't really touch my textbooks that much after the language challenge. When I did do stuff in my textbooks, it was usually the grammar and vocabulary exercises from those textbooks because they're just easy to do in like 5 minutes. I just open the textbook, get a couple of exercises done and close it. It feels like too serious to open like my Delft textbook, which is not a very good mindset to have, but I'm working on it. And I didn't manage to finish all the preparation sections. I've gotten quite a way through the listening and reading sections, but I haven't really done much on the writing section or the speaking one. But it is definitely something that I need to go through like quite soon as well. Like in the next quarter I need to get that done so that I can review before the exam. So sort of held it off a bit because I didn't want to finish it too quickly and have it sort of leave my head, because I feel like if I did everything, all the preparation sections, right at the beginning of, let's say, April, I feel like by the time the exam came in December, I wouldn't really remember, because at that point I would have finished it and done the review sections as well. Then I'd have to like continuously be reviewing the review sections as well in order to remember what happened for December, and I can't really be bothered. So we're going to sort of wing it. Those were all my French goals. Overall, I did pretty well. It was just the longer pieces of writing and the preparation sections and the Delft that I didn't manage to do. Overall, I think I did fairly well. And I think my goals for this quarter were quite good as well. They weren't too ambitious, but they also weren't too lenient as well. I do wish there was more specific goals, like with quantitative, like that could be tracked. But I do understand why there wasn't, and in the next quarter I also think there are not going to be as many quantitative goals either, just because it's too complicated to figure out exactly how I'm going to do certain things, because my schedule changes, the amount of time I have changes, a lot of things can change, and I don't want to tie myself down to this arbitrary number that I end up not being able to achieve. It's great to see, like, in numbers, how well I've been doing. I've been thinking about trying to track my hours, but I can't really be bothered to, because I don't tend to study in a very organised way. So it's going to be very difficult to track my hours, and I don't think I'm going to look back at that data very often. Like, I don't think I need that sort of data. That's the thing. But it would be interesting to know. But now moving on to Japanese. My first goal was to finish the book Hoshi no Oji-sama, which I've been reading ever since I got it last year. I have not finished it. I just can't bring myself to read in Japanese, like, because my reading skills have gotten a lot worse since I've sort of slowed down with my studies, and it becomes like harder to read. And then to add to that, that book is written in like the traditional Japanese way of being like vertical lines right to left, which is a bit exhausting for the eyes, especially because I'm so used to reading in English or in French where it's just, you know, the normal right to left horizontal lines. So I've not finished it, but I did get quite a bit of a way through it. I got about halfway. I think I got about 2/3 of the way through, and then I just didn't finish. So it's definitely something I could finish in the next quarter. And my next goal was to read 197 pages of the next book, which is called Yogisha X no Kenshin. This seems really interesting. It's supposed to be like a murder mystery sort of book, but I've not even started it because I haven't finished the Hoshi no Oji-sama. And this one seems like it's going to be a lot more difficult, so it's going to take me a lot longer to get through it. I don't know why I thought I'd get halfway through, which is where the 197 pages came from. My next two goals were to translate and transcribe 6 songs, which I managed to do. Though a lot of that was actually due to the challenge in May, and then me realising that those are my goals at the end of June and just getting it done quickly. It's still interesting for me to do, it's just that Japanese is like not a part of my routine anymore, so it's quite hard for me to remember that I actually have things to do in Japanese. And since it's going to be even less important to me in the next 2 quarters, I think I'm gonna make my goals a bit easier. My next goal was to write 3 journal entries in Japanese. I only managed to get 2 done because I actually forgot to do it in April. And I should have expected that because I realised that when I don't have to do something regularly, I completely forget that I have to do it. And that was the case in April. And that's the reason why I switched to journaling daily in French rather than journaling weekly. Because if I don't have to do it like every single day, I'm going to forget that I have to do it even every week. So expecting me to remember to do this monthly was just quite a bit. I did manage to do May and June, and I think it's going to be easier to remember now that I know that I've forgotten before. But yeah, I did miss April, and so I only managed to get 2 out of the 3 months. And my last goal was to use the Tobira textbook and workbook. And I did use them quite a bit, especially during the language challenge in May, and a bit afterwards and a bit before as well. Obviously not as much as I would have liked, but again, Japanese is not really my priority, and it won't be for the next quarter, so while I do want to use it, it's not going to be as big of a deal for me if I don't. So for quarter 3, my target languages are still going to remain French and Japanese. Sign language might just sneak in a little bit if I have the time to take a class in the evenings, but I'm not setting any goals. Like I said before, French is going to be my focus for this quarter as we lead up to the exams, and Japanese is going to take a bit of a backseat, just like it has like the entire year. I'm going to be on holiday for all of July and August, and I'm also going to be travelling during July and August, so I might not get as much done as I hope, but I'm going to really try this time to push myself to work even though I'm not going to be on holiday. And when I start the new year, I want to get into a routine where I fit my language learning around my life instead of letting it always get pushed to the side, because it is important and it is a lot more enjoyable than uni work or regular work. So I do want to make it a priority in my life and stop letting everything else come before it. So we're going to start off with my French goals. They're pretty similar to the last quarter's goals, and just the same as last quarter. I'm not going to put a lot of numbers in my goals because it's easier to plan that out on a monthly level. So my first goal is to do 30 dictations. This is going to be fairly simple. Like the last quarter I did 15 and I managed to do all that and even more. So I definitely think I can step that up to 30. I think that's going to be all of the ones that I have remaining on the site. And I'm going to finish all of them at a B2 level, and then if I need to, I'll go on to a C1 level and do however many I need to do, however many I have left. I don't tend to do them in a very serious way. What happens is usually I'll do 5 in one day because I'm really in the mood, and then I won't touch it for 3 weeks. But hopefully that is enough to get enough of them in. And when I'm in the mood, I really enjoy them, so I think this goal is going to be pretty easy to achieve. My next goal is to finish 3 books. So there are only 3 more books that I own that I haven't read, which is still quite a lot actually. But there's a lot more that I still want to get, but I told myself that I was going to finish the books that I have before I get any more. So I want to just finish off all the books that I own before I start to get more. And these 3 books are Un avion sans ailes et Le temps est assassin by Michel Bussy and Que ta volonté soit faite by Maxime Chatham. Hopefully they're fairly interesting. I have read books from the same authors before and they were okay, but I don't know how I'm going to feel about them. These were some of the first books that I bought in French, so I sort of bought them just because they were very well known. So I don't know if they're actually going to be good for me, but I'll get through them anyway. I feel like at this point I just want to get as much exposure to French as possible, and reading these 3 books is definitely going to be a lot of exposure. This is going to mean that I need to read 1 book a month, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that, because I remember at the beginning of the year when 1 book was taking me 3 months to read. But if I really try to, I definitely can. because the last book that I read, Numéro 2, I finished it in about 2 weeks. It took me about a month to read a quarter of it, and then I finished the rest of it in like 2 weeks. So it's definitely just one of those things where I just need to put my mind to it and I can actually read them really, really fast. And now that I'm on holiday, I think that I can get through them quite quickly, so I'm going to try to. I want to also start taking notes from the books again, and I definitely think I'll have to, because these books look a lot more difficult than the ones that I've just finished reading. And yeah, it would be good to note down some of the vocabulary that I'm going to learn from them, and possibly make flashcards, but I don't know yet. My next goal is to read the news. This is something that's been on my list like all year, because it is very important for me doing a B2 exam to have exposure to a lot of formal French like in the news, and to be aware of current events and current social issues and everything. The problem is that's just not very interesting for me, but I will make an effort to make sure that every time that I want to check the news, or if I want to find out something, I do that in French instead. I think that's the best way to sort of integrate it into my life without making it super annoying or boring to do. My next goal is to watch documentaries. So this again is something that I do sort of like doing, but I tend to only do when it interests me and on subjects that interest me, which is not very often. So I want to push myself to sort of look at a wider variety of subjects. And I'm also going to try and write summaries and to try and analyse them a bit more, rewatch them, try and transcribe them a bit if I can. Just try and engage with them more rather than just watching them and moving on. My next goal is to journal daily, which is something that I've been doing all year, and I just want to continue it on to quarter 3. And I think it would be really interesting to see at the end of the year, like a whole year's worth of journal entries and see my thoughts over a whole year. My next goal is to finish all the preparation sections in the DELF 100% Réussite textbook. And this was a goal for quarter 2 that I didn't manage to achieve. But now I'm really more focused, and now that we're getting closer to the exam date, I definitely need to get that done. So I'm going to push myself to work on it a lot more and try and get it done this quarter as well, so that I can move on to finishing the rest of it in the next quarter. And I think I'll actually have to start the next part in this quarter too, but I just want to definitely have all the preparation sections done, because I do also have a lot of other textbooks that I need to use. So last quarter I said that I wouldn't be making specific goals for my textbooks, I'll just try to use them. But now I think that I actually do need to put specific goals on them, because use textbooks was a bit too vague, and it led to me just sort of not doing anything, or not doing as much as I think I could have, because I was just like, oh, I've used the textbook, that's enough, even though I have like 6 of them. So I'm setting goals for specific textbooks this time, or for some of my textbooks at least. I have 2 French progressive textbooks, one for grammar and one for vocabulary, and my goals for them are to do at least 1 exercise from every single chapter in both of them. So for grammar, there are 85 chapters, but the chapters are not very long, so it won't actually be that difficult. And for vocabulary, there are 28, so it won't be as difficult. And I've started both of them, and I've done some of the exercises, so it's not like this huge task. It just requires a bit of dedication, and I want to get a bit more through the vocabulary book than the grammar book, because the grammar book is all the way from B2 to C2, so I'm not expecting to finish it anytime soon. But the vocabulary book is from B2 to C1.1, so I do want to get a bit more through it. I do think that I don't think I'm going to be able to master a lot of the grammar very well, so I want to at least have a very good vocabulary base to rely on during the exam. I also have another textbook that is about debating skills, and I really want to get through all of the practice sections in this book. I also want to try one of the debates in the book, but I'm not going to put a goal on that. I just want to get through the first 20 chapters, which are all just about the separate skills that you need to know for debating in French, which will be very useful for both the writing and the speaking part of the test. And speaking of those two, I have 2 textbooks for the production orale et production écrite sections of the exam. and I want to do all of the activities in those two as well. I am trying to write a lot more and I do need to speak a lot more. So I want to get a bit through these books, especially since they're specifically for the B2. So if I don't finish them before the exam, it is a bit of a waste, even though I can still continue to use them afterwards. Because it's not like I'm going to get 100% in the exams. But yes, I did decide to be more specific this time and put goals on each one of my textbooks, just so that I can use them a bit more and get a bit more use out of them. I originally had the goal to just write longer pieces of writing, like I said in the last quarter, but I think that's going to be covered by me using my textbooks a lot more, because I do aim on doing a lot of the exercises from those textbooks, cover more writing. One thing I've been thinking about a lot is how I want to start shadowing more in French, because I'd always thought that my French listening skills are really good because I watch a lot of French media, like YouTube videos and shows, and I have no trouble understanding them. But like when I try to do exercises for my textbooks, I find that I really struggle to pick out like details, like people's jobs or specific numbers, if they only mention it once, or if it's surrounded by other info, which it like always is at the B2 level. And like it's been surprisingly difficult to complete the listening exercises in the textbook, which is one of the reasons why I haven't used it as much. And I do know that it's not good to avoid the things that I'm not good at, but without proper accountability, I find it difficult to motivate myself to do stuff that's not fun to me. And I think another reason is that I tend to zone out a lot if I'm only listening to something, which is part of the reason why I'm not a big fan of audiobooks or podcasts. Like, if I'm doing anything else as I listen, I will not be paying attention and I won't hear anything. Like, the only time that I listen to podcasts is when I'm just lying in bed at night or in the morning, because I just need like to completely concentrate on the audio to actually hear it. I cannot be like, even doing the dishes, like I will not be focusing on the audio, I'll just be focusing on the dishes and I won't hear anything, and it becomes a bit pointless. So that's something that I need to work on, and I think that shadowing will help a lot, but I'm not quite sure what sort of content I should use to shadow. So if you have some suggestions, I'd love to hear them. I am thinking of just getting like YouTube videos, particularly interviews of people, so it's more natural, less scripted. And I also tend to shadow that sort of content naturally. Like sometimes when someone says something funny, I find myself just repeating it in my head without intending to shadow the content. I'll just be repeating it myself just because I think it's a funny phrase. I think it's something that I want to be able to say myself. So I think it'll be easier to sort of try and do that in a more intentional way, and maybe even try to transcribe that sort of content too, to get extra practice. But yeah, those are all my goals for French. And now moving on to Japanese. So since Japanese is taking even more of a backseat this quarter, I decided to cut down on my goals as well. So it's not exactly going to be a lot going on this quarter. I've basically given up on trying to put a goal on my Japanese reading because it just happens when it happens, and if I'm in the mood to do it, I'll do it. But a lot of the times I'm not, so I don't. So I do just want to read Hoshino Oji-sama and see where I get in it. I might not get anywhere, I might get really far, I don't know. I might just give up and move on to the next book because I can't be bothered, and that's completely fine. But I do want to try and read something in Japanese. My next goal is that I want to transcribe 6 songs and translate 6 songs, which is the same as in quarter 2. This is still something that I enjoy, even though I don't do it very much. If you guys have any suggestions of songs that I should check out, I'd love to hear them, because that's sort of the limiting factor for me doing this, is that it needs to be a song that I really enjoy for me to want to sit there for like half an hour and sit and pause the song every 2 seconds to transcribe it or translate it. It ends up being really boring, and if it's a song that I don't even like, I really feel like giving up like 1 minute into the song. And my last goal is just to journal 3 times, so once a month, just like this quarter, and hopefully I won't forget this time. So yeah, this has been quite a long video, but I just wanted to chat with you guys and let you know what's been going on with my language learning, and I'd love to hear what's going on with you guys and how your quarter 2 has gone, what your quarter 3 goals are, or just anything else you have on your mind. Let me know in the comments down below, and check out my other goal videos in a playlist on my channel, and I'll of course be giving monthly updates during this quarter on how my goals have been going, and they'll hopefully not be as late as my last couple of videos. I'm trying to be more consistent now that I'm more settled, though I am travelling a lot, so that might mess up my whole schedule again. Thank you all so much for watching. If you liked the video, please leave a like and subscribe, that'll help me out a lot, and I'll see you in the next video.